Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm having steak, eggs, brown rice, and broccoli. Then the breakfast of champions. Something I run into a lot as a coach. It's a coach who works with a lot of young men. Now I get a pretty wide age range. I do have guys in their late teens. I have people in their 50s. Actually, I have two lifters in their 50s right now. We're actually both pretty decently strong and everything in between. But one of the problems I run into when it comes to training maxes, it is very, very, very difficult to get young men to understand the concept of a training max. And if we're going to do conjugate or we're going to do 5-3-1 type programming, and these are the two things I program, we have to do some training maxes. Right? In fact, we do pretty often do training maxes. It's part of these systems. Now, with 5-3-1, we can base it upon previous blocks. I can assign a percentage of their last training max based on their rep work. And we get to one every third or fourth week. Conjugate people just have to ramp to one. The issue we run into is that we need to establish a training max on the front end. And here's the issue you run into with a lot of younger kids. And you can't get them to grasp this fact. And a lot of you out there may not grasp this fact. A training max is not supposed to be heavy. A training max should be maybe 90%, maybe 92% of your one rep max. So what does that actually mean? It means if you're capable of grinding out 500 pounds, you do 450, 455, 460. Why? Because the research shows, and you will see even conjugate guys like Winning have shown this, who's got a master's in exercise science. The research shows the benefits of maxing carry over to anything above 90%. There is no benefit we're gaining from a strength development perspective by going above, say, the 455 if your max is 500 for the single. You save it for competition. And it gives us stuff to program off of and train off of. Okay, it gives us that. Training max should be fast. You can tell a training max from a max because one is grindy and one isn't. Usually a training max is 2 seconds or less. The concentric rep, 2 seconds or less. It's never 3. Sure as hell never 3.5. Because there's no reason for us to have to learn to grind for the most part. I know people say, well, you should. No, you can do limit sets to learn to strain a little bit. Shouldn't have to learn to really grind. You know why? How many world records in powerlifting look like an opener? Go look at Malinachev hit a world record squat. Does he grind or is it a 2-second rep? He just pops it up. He just takes 1,000 pounds and pops it up. He doesn't have to grind to break world records. We'll make the argument on the deadlift. It's a little different. Squat and bench, or any other lift. My God, a snatch, a clean, an overhead press fall into the same category. So we look at this and you try to get them to do a training max. And you know what they will do? You can give a kid, and I've had one of my kids do this. By kid, I mean he's 20 years old. That's a child. 20 years old is a child. So you tell them to ramp up to a training max and you explain in detail what a training max is. And that they add weight until it gets heavy, and when it grinds, as soon as it's grindy or slow or it feels heavy, we don't count that rep. And I told him that. I'm like, I'm not going to let you count it. If it's too slow, we're not going to count it. It's not going to be a training max. I'm going to go with the one you did before that jump. So if you go 150 and it's good, you go 160 and it's grindy, and then you go 170 and you miss it, because You shouldn't be doing the 170. I'm going to count the 150, and we're going to pretend that you never lifted the 160. Do you know why? Because I told you to do a training max. And for you guys out there who are calculating numbers off of a training max, how about your percentages for stuff off conjugate? How about your percentages for stuff off of a 531? You need to learn to make this difference. You need to look at the footage and be objective, or how it felt, and realize if that training max was grindy, it was not a training max. I need to count the one before it. It doesn't count. And that'll upset my kids when I tell them, no, we're not counting that lift. As far as we're concerned, you have never lifted that weight because you couldn't do it smooth. Therefore, it's not a training max. Therefore, you don't get to mark it on your sheet. Erase it. I'm refusing to recognize your lift. Now, here's how bad it is with these kids. They know you're going to do this to them. So what will a kid do? And again, 20 years old. This is how you know 20-year-olds are children. Because a 20-year-old will do this, a 19-year-old will do this, because they're basically children. So what do? They'll go 150, and it'll be smooth. It's a good training max. You can tell that was heavy for them. That's their training max. They'll go to 160 anyways, and they'll grind it. And then what do you think they will do? When you've told them, we don't count grinders, and do not ever miss a rep. We do not miss lifts. Period. Do not do it. We do not hit failure on barbell lifts, including singles. What do you think they'll do? What will a 20-year-old do every single time? If they're psyched up now. They got hyped up. They took a pre-workout or some other stupid shit you shouldn't be doing. What do you think they do? They'll attempt the 170 knowing 160 was an all-out max. They'll try it and miss it. You guys see a problem here? All of you out there listening, you probably fall into this category and realize, yeah, this is you. You guys do this stuff, and then you wonder why your numbers are off. You wonder why you can't complete reps and sets and things prescribed as percentages later. You wonder why you're not getting stronger. I don't know, because you're missing lifts. You're missing lifts. And you guys who are doing this stuff and doing your AMRAPs on your barbell movements, and you accidentally hit failure because you couldn't tell that you didn't have any reps in reserve left. How many of you younger guys listening do stuff like that regularly, and then you go, I'm not getting bigger and stronger? I think maybe that's why. Did you know that that actually reduces strength and muscle growth? It beats your recovery up. Only people who train that way are blasting 2 grams of gear because they can recover from it, but they're not actually getting progress from it. You don't hit failure on barbell lifts. You don't fail singles. We don't fail 5s or 10 rep work. You shouldn't be doing that. And you sure as hell don't grind training maxes that you're going to calculate off of. And until a lot of younger lifters can understand this fact, that they think they're being hardcore or working harder by training stupid, they're going to struggle to make gains unless they, just eat enough and sleep enough and get fat. They'll probably can just push through it. But half the kids out there who are doing this aren't willing to get fat either. They're not willing to overcompensate for their bad training to make up for the recovery for it. The truth is, you make the best gains running at 90%. It's not my opinion. That's what the research shows. And that's what the best coaches in the world will almost always tell you. Live at 90% effort with 100% consistency. That's kind of your sweet spot. You can make the argument for 80% to 90%. But if you really want to be elite, it needs to be 90%, not 100% effort. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.